Elena, first up, we do have our first guest waiting, and I know you took the time to reach out to Paul, so feel free to introduce our guest. Make him feel welcome.
Make him feel welcome? Wow, I get to do the honor. So on the program today, we are going to be welcoming on Paul Hickey of Sports Card Strategy. A little bit of a hobby content powerhouse, I'd like to say, just kind of pumping out all sorts of articles and different hobby content in the space. So without further ado, Paul, how are you?
I'm great, Elena. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm humbled to be on the show and to be called a content powerhouse. I'm going to try to own that. But nice to connect with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you you were so quick to respond to my DMs and everything like that. And there's just a few new things I think you have in like the circuit or on the docket. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. But do you want to just start by telling the people who don't know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I'm the co-host of a podcast called Sports Card Strategy Show. You can get us everywhere that you get your podcasts. And nooffseason.com is our website. So we try to help people make money flipping sports cards. That's our focus. So whether or not you're flipping to fund your PC, which many of you are, or you're just flipping to fund your life and take money out of sports cards, we want it to be fun and educational. So that's what we do.
And, you know, it's just interesting to me, you say educational, and David and I have been kind of working on an educational sort of series to help somebody that's brand new to collecting what this hobby is all about. What challenges have you ran into doing kind of something similar where you're trying to teach people, but you realize, oh my God, there's so many layers to this?
Yes, it's so overwhelming to re-enter the hobby after many decades, like many of us have, or to just, get into the hobby for the first time. There's so much going on, so many different aspects of what to do and how to have fun. But before you know it, your money starts going down the drain, right? And so I learned a couple of years the hard way of what cards not to buy and what not to do. And so you teed me up perfectly for a shameless plug, Elena. We actually just launched at nooffseason.com Sports Card School. And the reason we launched Sports Card School is because we want to help people learn the lessons that we learned the hard way. And so people can go to nooffseason.com or sportscardschool.com, and we've got 3 courses. We've got re-entering the hobby for beginners. We've got advanced flipping, and then we've got the high roller course. So we're dropping lessons consistently. And yeah, it's all about just kind of how to navigate things and what to do in the hobby and how to have fun and make money.
And, it's like interesting that you're talking about advanced flipping as like one of the degrees that you teach in there. Like, what is the biggest struggle that you've seen people run into when it comes to flipping cards and trying to sell those cards through eBay or any other sort of auction houses? Because I know it's kind of intimidating, and I kind of learned that the hard way. Recently, I sold a Jaylen Waddle rookie green mosaic near mint 8 on eBay, and it literally sold for like $5.50. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? It's a slabbed up card. Like, this is a good card, even though it's an 8, I know. But, what are problems you see people running into?
Have a selling marker in mind always before you buy a card. I think that is the most overlooked thing. That's the pattern that people don't realize that they need. So it's super easy to buy a card. Anybody can buy a card. Anybody can have an idea of what player to buy, what player is going to pop off. But unless you have a specific selling marker in mind for a card, you're not going to make a profit on that card. And sometimes that's fine. I mean, if you're PCing somebody and you're okay holding the card, that's okay. But for us, we really want you to profit. And so we want you to have a selling marker in mind. I'll give you a couple examples real quick. One pattern that we always see is that when a baseball prospect gets called up for the first time and they're a big name prospect, typically, their card's going to go up, and it might only be 20, 30%, but sometimes it doubles and triples depending on who the prospect is. And so you can buy a top baseball prospect before the call up, and you can sell at the call up, and typically you're going to profit. That's going to be a safe investment. It's kind of counterintuitive, because how can someone who's never played Major League Baseball before be a safe investment? But again, that's an example of what we talk about when we say have a selling marker in mind. If it's a baseball prospect that might not get called up till 2025, 2026, that's pretty risky. If it's someone who could make the club out of spring training in 2024, that's a selling marker. So you go ahead and buy that card. But you got to buy the right card for the right player at the right time. And so that's another thing real quick. You have to buy the right card. So a lot of our content, well, all of our content is around that premise at the Sports Card Strategy Show and nooffseason.com. What's the right card? So have a selling marker in mind, buy the right card.
And, it's kind of a good segue to, you're talking about draft prospects, and obviously we know Bowman Draft released yesterday. Who are you thinking right now? Obviously, we could talk about Brady in a different section because that seems like just free money at that point. But in terms of prospects, like, are you big into prospecting? And out of Bowman Draft, like, who would you be holding right now?
Big into prospecting for sure because of the reason that I just mentioned. Like, those are the guys that have the clear selling markers. And so Wyatt Langford out of this year's draft release is the guy. We're gonna be our Monday show, Sports Card Strategy Show, is gonna be dedicated to Bowman Draft, and we're gonna talk a lot about Wyatt Langford and why he's the guy to buy right now from a single standpoint. We have guidelines, strategies, and plays at nooffseason.com. So you have to put together multiple guidelines to make a strategy, and then strategies can be executed into any number of plays. So the Wyatt Langford play is going to be similar to the Jackson Holiday play, where you look at a guy like Wyatt Langford and you see his card prices going up from now all the way till he probably makes the club out of spring training, and then you sell him for a profit. And even though it's a high buy-in, Wyatt Langford, we believe, is the guy.
Yeah. And,
you're in on him too, David?
Oh, man, I love Wyatt Langford. The dude just mashes the ball. Honestly.
See, I'm so out of the baseball realm that it's like football, you could talk to me about, college players coming up and I can answer that. But baseball, there's so many and it gets so confusing, honestly.
It can get confusing 100%. But yeah, no, I agree with you on Wyatt Langford. I think everyone's going to be looking at Paul Skeens, but I agree with you that I think there's other dudes that you need to look at that you obviously need to make investments in. And I think Wyatt's the guy that's like a surefire thing.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to get to, because I just had like a self-to-self connection when you were talking about the sport card school. We've had, I actually literally just got asked a question this morning, like, what is a superfractor? Not to throw it. Yeah. Hello, Pat.
Not to throw Higgy Bear under the bus.
So, how important is it for you guys to be, open and available to answer those questions? Because obviously there are some people that they'll get that question and be like, oh, you don't know what a superfractor is? Like, get out. How important is it for you guys to be open and available and, informing when it comes to those questions that may be simpler for people that have been in the hobby a little bit, but for people just getting in, they don't know?
Super important. Yeah, there's a huge knowledge gap between people that have been doing it for several years and been to multiple card shows, transacted on eBay, transacted on all the other marketplaces, and those that are just getting started. And so we found that actually the way that we've grown organically is on our Sports Card Strategy Show, our audience QA segment got so full that we actually started a show called The Overflow Show. And on The Overflow Show, we do that every Friday for our premium members at nooffseason.com. And the reason why we do it for our premium members is because it gives us an opportunity to really research the best answers to everyone's questions. But you're right. I mean, we get the same questions over and over again from people that are re-entering the hobby. And so then that's kind of what prompted us to start Sports Card School, because we're thinking, okay, if we get the same questions over and over again, we should turn this into courses. Well, to your point, even with the courses, people have such intricate details of what they're trying to do, and there's no possible way to cover that really in any article, in any podcast. So you have to take the personalized questions. And so we say, unlimited personalized advice at nooffseason.com. What that really means is just ask us your questions as a premium member. We're going to answer them every Friday on the Overflow Show. It's going to be a very tailored answer to your situation. So I think it's extremely important that, you can't just set it and forget it with this. Stuff changes all the time. So constantly synthesizing information and spitting out strategies.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what is the most common question that you get from people re-entering the hobby? Is that what you were going to ask?
Yeah. It's if you had $200 to spend right now on cards to make money in the next 3 to 6 months, what would you do? That's the most common question. And, sometimes the amount differs, right? Sometimes it's $1,000, sometimes it's $500. But generally the people out there are wanting to know, hey, if I'm going to put a few $100s into cards and want to get profit in the next, 3 to 6 months, what would you do?
Somebody literally texted me like last week saying, hey, I have like $150. What box should I buy? Or like, what should I get? And like, you think about it, and it's just like, oh, get whatever you like. But then people are like, no, I need advice. Like, what product's hot? And it's just like, do you ever have to like sit back and like actually think like, okay, actually, if I had $200 myself, what would I do?
Totally, because I have to ask everybody, when do you expect the money back? Because, some plays don't I'll give you a good example. I'm buying a lot of Shedeur Sanders Bowman Chrome first autos right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Out of Bowman U, obviously. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm thinking he could be a top 5 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Well, I'm not going to get that money until April 2025. And you got to have you got to have a lot of patience for that. Well, I think that could be, depending, I'd probably send those cards off to PSA, get them graded. If they come back at 10, that could be, a 5 to 10x, depending, if he's based on some other data that I'm looking at. So if, that's a little bit risky, but I actually think that's the selling marker, right? The 2025 NFL draft. Well, if you need that money back in like 2 months, that could be Tyrese Haliburton, when, the NBA All-Star game coming, if he's a starter on the All-Star team in his hometown, that could be a Tyrese Haliburton card. And then we got to do a little bit of research around what can you get for that $150 that could give you a return that makes sense. So it could be, the difference between Shedeur Sanders and Tyrese Haliburton from a sports standpoint is pretty vast. But from a sports card standpoint, you see where, there's different scenarios dictate what our play is going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there a degree of having to, like, you're investing in Shedeur Sanders and you full on know that it could not pan out and you could lose money. Is that something that you have to tell people, like, be comfortable, like, A, have the funds to be able to expend them like this, and B, be comfortable in the fact that you might be wrong in a prediction like that?
Yes, 100%. And what's even harder to communicate to people is, like, I think Shedeur Sanders is far less risky than Peyton Manning. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't know, I have the inability to tell anyone when a Peyton Manning card is going to rise in price. I think we're all just guessing when we talk about a lot of retired athletes. I think we can come up with things like, well, he's in the media. Well, he could own an NFL team. Well, he could do this. Well, he could do that. Yeah, those could be markers for his cards to rise. But I know Shedeur Sanders is going to play again at Colorado. I know that there's going to be hype around him in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
He could get injured. He could do something off the field that affects his value in a negative way. So yes, Elena, I absolutely have to, give the disclaimer that, look, there's risk here, but I can actually build the case for why I think Peyton Manning is riskier than Shedeur Sanders. If you spend the same amount of money on a Peyton Manning card that you do on a Shedeur Sanders card, tell me when you can sell that Peyton Manning card for more than it is right now.
Right.
I'll tell you when you can sell a Shedeur Sanders card for more than it is right now.
And you know what? You bring up a good point. You mentioned, Sanders could get hurt. We just seen last week, Herbert just got hurt, and he's out for the rest of the year. Sports are so ever-changing.
Especially football.
And and it's not always bad things. There could be, some guy hits 4 home runs in a game. You're going to see his card spike. How tough is the adjustment, or the accommodation, I should say, in the hobby to, adjust with how ever-changing sports are as a whole?
It's tough, man. You got to be prepared to get in and get out quick. I think that's another thing we try to hammer home to our audience is, like, with the plays we're talking about on our show, we're talking about getting in and getting out quick because, to your point, stuff happens in an instant. And so actually we do sell alerts. We allow people to text sports cards to a particular number. And I'm not going to throw it out on your show, but if anyone wants to check us out on our show, you'll get that number. And we allow people to text sports cards to that number, and then we send out sell alerts because things happen so quick. And, like, you can see when Shohei Ohtani signed with the Dodgers or when Juan Soto got traded to the Yankees last week, there's an immediate spike in their value. And then all of a sudden there's not a spike. Like 48 hours later, that spike has gone down. And so unless you're acting quickly and set up to sell and set up to move in and out, you can not only miss out on opportunities, but you can really shoot yourself in the foot. Because if you're looking at yesterday's news, the opportunity could already be gone. So that's why we try to actually for beginners or for people re-entering the hobby, we try to avoid those types of plays. We try to let people know this is a play that you can wait a few months or you can wait a year before it actually happens. And then that way you can chill out and enjoy life and you don't have to be paying attention to your sports card portfolio 24/7.
So we just had a question from the chat. Wayfirst is asking you to speculate on Jayden Daniels because he just won the Heisman and is projected to be a first-round pick. What do you think about him?
The tough part about Jayden Daniels is he doesn't have the right cards yet. He wasn't in Bowman. He wasn't in Bowman U, which sucks.
Right.
Because I would have bought Jayden Daniels a few months ago if he was. But he's got some Leaf cards and he's got some other non-licensed stuff. And my fear with so I'm fading Jayden Daniels, and here's why. Yeah. My fear is that if the Jayden Daniels cards that you would buy right now and then sell. So the selling marker is the NFL draft.
Right.
Like he's going to be a first round pick. The selling marker is the NFL draft. Great player. The reason I'm fading him right now on, December 13th is because he doesn't have the right cards yet. My fear is that all of a sudden, like a Topps Now release with an auto is going to come out leading up to the NFL draft that would supersede that Leaf card or something before the selling marker. And so until the right Jayden Daniels card comes out, I'm fading him. And that might mean that I fade him completely.
Right.
So I think sometimes fading somebody is the best advice I can give.
I gotcha.
Another one of my questions, and then I'll let you. I've been talking this whole time.
You got Paul. That's fine, man.
Like, what qualities? You're talking about Sanders, then you're talking about reasons why you're going to fade Daniels. Like, what qualities do you look in for players, maybe especially football or baseball? It doesn't really matter. That you're like, yes, I like the way this player plays. I think I can, take his copy value and invest in that. What qualities do you look for?
Yeah, great question. Let's do Wyatt Langford versus Max Clark, right? Because they're similar. It's a similar buying decision. It's like prospect versus prospect, top 5 pick. So for a baseball prospect, for example, like we want to look at like what type of organization are they in? And I think that applies to all sports. Like, are they on an organization that knows what they're doing? Mm-hmm. Are they on a team that can possibly win? I think that's part of picking the right player. Are they a top prospect or a top player on that team? So like Langford, we know could make the club out of spring training. Max Clark, we have no idea where he's going to be in the Tigers organization. We have no idea when he could potentially get the call up. So there's just a big question mark. So I think looking at the player, what type of organization are they in? Where do they fit within that organization? And that can be applied to football, basketball, hockey, other sports, soccer. Are they the right position? So, are they a hitter in baseball? Are they a QB? Sorry, everybody who collects football cards. But, QBs, it's tough to invest in anybody else. Are they a scorer in basketball? Are they a scorer in hockey? Are they a scorer in soccer? So looking at those types of factors, and then is their organization going to make the playoffs? Are they going to make a playoff run? Because that could be another sell marker. And then just real quick, like I said about Jayden Daniels, I mean, do they have the right card? You look at a guy like CJ Stroud. He doesn't have the right card yet.
Yeah.
Not all his rookie cards are out. We don't know what's happening with his autos, all those different things. So he could be, and he just got injured, but he could be the right player on the right team. But he doesn't have the right card, so it's not the right time. So I think those are the main factors we look at.
All right, I got to ask this last one, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
Where are we at, Sam Howell?
Oh, of course.
Where are we at with Sam Howell cards? What are we doing? Please tell me what we're doing.
Paul, I should have warned you. I'm sorry.
Okay. I get the vibe that you want me to say the opposite of what I'm about to say, so I apologize in advance.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking. But you gotta fade Sam Howell. I'm gonna tell you why.
No.
First of all, he's exceeded expectations. So anybody that's already you got to buy somebody who you think is going to exceed expectations before they do it.
Right.
So Sam Howell's already done it. His prices have already reflected that. You would be buying in at somewhat of a high point in general
Right.
at Sam Howell. I mean, I know you could probably catch me on like, well, this card is down and this card, okay, that's fine. That's probably going to happen. But also like the Commanders, I mean, are they not going to have a top pick and draft a quarterback this year? So I just don't know. I just don't know where Sam Howell fits. I feel like he's a decent NFL starter or a really good backup in the future, but I'm fading Sam Howell.
All right, it was nice talking to you.
Maybe
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Are you fading me now? Like
I'm fading you now.
You're fading Paul Hickey? Okay.
Elena,
you know what? Truth hurts. Listen, I will run the fastest.
Sorry, Elena.
I know it's okay. I will run the biggest victory lap when he wins the Super Bowl next year.
Okay, Elena, if you go over to the desk, there's tissues over there.
I know, I'm about to cry.
So I got to ask you, because I'm actually doing a little investing in myself, and I recently won a Buster Posey rookie PSA 10.
Nice.
In a giveaway. And I was sitting there like, okay, when is the best time to sell this? Because I'm not a big Buster Posey guy, and I know catchers aren't huge in the hobby, but Buster Posey, I think, is going to be a Hall of Famer. Am I doing the right thing by holding until the day he makes the Hall of Fame and then posting that as soon as possible?
Yeah, that's where my mind was at as soon as you said his name. I think actually historical data tells us that when he's announced, when players are announced, their prices go up versus the actual enshrinement ceremony. And that can vary from sport to sport, but typically we're all about the hype. And so if you're looking to sell that Posey card, the hype typically is when the announcement happens and not necessarily when the ceremony happens, because that's when there's the article on ESPN. That's when they're featured on MLB Network, things like that. So I'll be honest with you, though. I mean, anyone active in the MLB or retired MLB players is not my forte, but that's my understanding of probably your best time to sell your Buster Posey card.
Okay, so I'm kind of on the right track.
Yeah, you're getting there.
So I'm
you're way better off than I am.
I'm not like off the rails, but you know,
you're way better off than me.
No, you're there. You're in the ballpark for sure.
Beautiful. Well, Paul, before we let you go, one, we appreciate the time you took out to spend with us this morning. And also, we do this every show, but just plug, where can people listen to Sports Card Strategy and any other social medias you might want to plug? Feel free.
Thank you so much. I would love it if people check us out on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. YouTube.com/Paul Hickey is where you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. We would love that support. And you can catch all our shows there. We're also on Apple and Spotify. Of course, if you search Sports Card Strategy, you'll get us. And nooffseason.com is our website. Mm-hmm. People want to check that out. And I would love to meet up with you guys in person at an upcoming card show. And thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
absolutely. We'll definitely have to meet up. And obviously next year in Cleveland, if you're at National, yes. I know we'll be at National. We'll have to link up and do something together. So hopefully we can meet up sooner than that, though.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Bob.
Take care. He just shit on you.
I know, he just completely. I was
Sam Howell.
Literally praying that he would be like, yeah, Sam Howell is
Sam Howell, the biggest investment.
Who you need to invest in.
He's the Shohei of the NFL. No, he just said,
Elena, you suck. You suck, Elena, and your takes are awful.
He did not say that you suck.
No, I know. It was a great guest. Very, very knowledgeable. I encourage everybody to go follow him. This is me being a personality. My earpiece just ripped out.
Influencer.
I'm such an influencer, guys.